On the morning of July 7, 2005, London's busy underground faced an unprecedented tragedy when a coordinated series of bombings struck the capital's transport network at the height of rush hour, unleashing chaos and fear on a scale the city had not witnessed in decades. 3 explosions erupted on trains near Aldgate, Edgware Road, and King's Cross St Pancras, while another bomb targeted a double-decker bus in Tavistock Square. The entire tube system shut down, with authorities evacuating every station and treating the key sites, Aldgate, Edgware Road, King's Cross St Pancras and Russell Square, as crime scenes under intense forensic scrutiny. No one knew what might happen next, and London braced itself for possible follow-up attacks. Caught in the middle of this crisis, thousands of commuters found themselves stranded, while stunned underground employees had to reconcile their usual day-to-day routine with a national emergency. Police swiftly arrived at the sites, evacuating everyone, staff, passengers and passers-by, and marking affected tunnels and platforms as restricted areas. Rescue and life-saving came first, followed by painstaking forensic investigations. In the aftermath, LU employee Mohammed Jamil at Edgware Road stepped up to help evacuate and rescue passengers from the wrecked train. Traumatized by what he saw, Jamil recalled never having witnessed such carnage and fervently hoped it would never happen again. Meanwhile, LU management scrambled to restore public confidence. They recognized the need to not only repair infrastructure, but to bolster morale among staff who had lived through such a harrowing event. Determined to show that terrorism would not halt the city, LU aimed to resume service within 24 hours, an ambitious task requiring massive security checks, thorough inspections for secondary devices, and reassurance for drivers understandably fearful of going back on duty. Central Line Performance Manager Fellow Hare worked around the clock to ensure every train was fully swept, searching for any suspicious items before gently persuading nervous drivers to return to work. He emphasized a communal spirit. Everyone was in this together, and if the tube remained closed, anxiety would only deepen. As darkness fell, the usually busy maintenance crews, cleaning teams, police officers, forensic experts, and station managers banded together. In ordinary times, overnight tasks included track inspection and cleaning, but that night demanded unprecedented vigilance. Any unclaimed bag or luggage, once barely worth a second glance, triggered immediate concern, with the public warned to report anything suspicious. Meanwhile, Network Control Center Operations Manager Andy Hogg acknowledged the universal apprehension among staff and the public, explaining that items once considered innocuous were now cause for alarm. By morning, a subdued London began to stir. Families waited anxiously for news of missing loved ones as the death toll mounted. Yet the Underground, despite still closed sections, managed to run a partial service, an act of defiance that signaled the city's determination to continue. Platforms at stations like Bond Street were eerily quiet at rush hour, but trains were moving. Exhausted from a long night of labour, Hare stood on the central line, observing that although sorrow still weighed heavily, staff members were back on duty. Approximately 85% of regular service resumed the following day, a vital morale boost amid lingering trauma. People like Jamil, who had personally assisted injured passengers at Edgware Road, felt isolated and nervous. With the station cordoned off for forensic work, he was assigned to another location, but he spoke openly of how the events would stay with him indefinitely. Managers introduced counseling hotlines, encouraged open dialogue, and rearranged schedules to help staff cope. Before major repairs could proceed, structural soundness had to be confirmed. Howard Collins led the overall recovery, coordinating with the police, forensic experts, and LU engineers. At Aldgate, Collins found 2 incident sites: the location of the blast and the final stopping point of the damaged train, propelled about 80 or 90 meters beyond the explosion. Forensics scoured every inch of that carriage, and only once they finished could engineers begin repairs. Challenging work made more delicate by the grim reminders scattered throughout. Several train operators, taking a break at Aldgate when the bomb detonated, became involuntary first responders. One of them, Paul Hawkins, described being knocked off his feet and witnessing horrific injuries around him. This harrowing reality led LU to give operators time off and emotional support. The most seriously damaged carriages near King's Cross and Russell Square were removed within a week, although somber progress reminded staff, like King's Cross supervisor Ramp Patel, of the tragic cause. Tunnels and stations were temporarily sealed, bright hoardings marking out restricted areas that replaced once bustling corridors. 1 week later, on July 14th, the city observed a 2-minute silence. London Transport briefly paused trains, and people across the capital stood still to honour those who died. Everywhere from station lobbies to major landmarks, candles flickered, flags flew at half-mast, and shared grief permeated the city. Forensic teams soon finished at Aldgate, returning control to LU. At Edgware Road, engineers brought in a colossal crane to remove a ravaged carriage, an operation Collins described as surreal as the damaged car rose off the track, hung in mid-air, then vanished behind the wall on its way to further examination. Yet after these glimmers of hope, another wave of attempted bombings on July 21st struck Warren Street, Oval, and Shepherd's Bush. Although the explosives failed to detonate, fear flared all over again. Stations emptied, roads were closed, and the network control center fielded a stream of emergency calls. Heightened security soon became standard, with staff carefully checking carriages, reminding travelers to keep their belongings in sight, and evacuating stations at the faintest sign of danger. Collins oversaw early morning inspections, ensuring each track, cable and signal functioned before reopening. For train operators like Steve Eldridge, psychological scars ran deep. Weeks after Aldgate, Eldridge devised a gradual approach to facing the tunnel again, first walking the route from Liverpool Street and then eventually returning underground. Each station's reopening brought relief, but also fresh reminders of grief. Bouquets, handwritten messages, and quiet tributes that recognized both the victims and the bravery of responders. When Aldgate finally reopened, Collins boarded the first train to reflect on the haunting empty space he'd come to know so well. Ridership remained lower than usual, with many commuters still uneasy. Edgware Road, normally a bustling interchange, was thoroughly refurbished. Mohammed Jamil came back to find that police had watered his small indoor garden while the station was sealed. He spoke of building a water feature and memorial plaque for those who lost their lives, calling it a modest but heartfelt tribute. He also expressed empathy, praying for everyone involved, including those behind the attacks, believing that life should never be cut short by human hands. Meanwhile, the deep-level Piccadilly line between King's Cross and Russell Square underwent meticulous safety checks. Engineers performed ghost runs to verify operational integrity. Once it reopened, passenger numbers stayed below the norm, but many felt continuing to ride the tube was an act of determination in the face of terror. The concluding recovery task involved honoring bereaved families. At Edgware Road, station manager Steve Gosker escorted one grieving family through the site where their loved one had died, allowing them to place flowers in a final poignant act of closure. Similar scenes played out at other stations, forging a profound bond between staff and the public. Throughout the following weeks, operations gradually normalized on the Circle District, Hammersmith City and Piccadilly lines, though minor shutdowns occurred whenever a suspicious package was reported. London's sense of normalcy, however, was inevitably changed. People had to adjust to the new reality of constant vigilance. Security cameras proliferated, emergency drills increased, and travelers became accustomed to announcements urging attention to any unattended belongings. Although the 7/7 bombings killed 52 people and injured hundreds more, London's determination shone through. LU employees and the public showed extraordinary courage, from first responders on the day to station teams persistently ensuring trains kept running. Some described their return to work as defiance against terror. Every open station and moving train signaled that the city would not be cowed. Each July since 2005, London commemorates the attacks with memorials such as the 52 steel pillars in Hyde Park, representing each life tragically cut short. Security measures have become routine, a quiet testament to lessons learned. Yet amid these heightened protocols, the spirit of unity and compassion prevails. Many recall not only the dread, but also the kindness of strangers, the resolve of frontline staff, and the collective resilience that defines the capital. London remains strong, and its underground, the city's lifeblood, stands as proof that adversity, however devastating, cannot quell a community's will to endure. The story of 7/7 is one of heartbreak and defiance, of tunnels cleared and stations repaired by dedicated people who refused to let terror paralyze the metropolis. Years later, travelers can still see subtle reminders of that tumultuous period, from more rigorous security checks to humble plaques commemorating what happened. Yet the overarching message is one of unity and courage. An assault on daily life tested London's resolve in ways few could have imagined, but the city, shaken but not defeated, persevered.